Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel, and today we're finishing the Evil Hat Victory Lap of 2019 with the Fate Space Toolkit. Fate's one of those games where I don't always think a lot of toolkits are necessary, but they're nice to have. Of the three that I have reviewed today, Fate of Cthulhu and Tome of Mysteries, the Fate Space Toolkit is probably the least required of them. If you've done a lot of space games before, then you know some of what's in here. If you haven't, then honestly, it's a great tool to use because what it does is give you a lot of options and switches that you can flip. How hard do you want your science fiction? How serious are some of the more mundane threats of space travel? You have everything from Star Wars to the cold equations, which is a really broad spectrum of stuff that you can do. As a friend of mine once put it, you go everything from The Expanse to anime, where you can be floating through space and open a Coke and then use that to propel you back towards your ship. I don't know if that actually happened in an anime. I'm not the world's biggest anime fan, so I don't track that all that much. So, Fate Space, just what it says on the title of the book, people. This gives you all sorts of ways for using the Fate the Fate rule set in an outer space setting. It does not do well with modern sci-fi, a la Fringe, X-Files, Torchwood, etc. You probably could squeeze cyberpunk out of this if you really wanted to for a near future, but this really, as it's Fate Space, so you're dealing with out in space sorts of stuff. Okay, so it gives you interesting rules on space combat, how that can work in your game. Time travel. I'm sorry, not time travel, this isn't Doctor Who. Although, why in the hell isn't Doctor Who a Fate game now that I say that? Anyway, I'm going to be thinking about that all day. So, it gives you ways of how you get around in space, combat, what it can look like, developing aliens and alien worlds. And then it gives you a handful of settings that kind of show off everything that you can do with this. It's a mixed bag. Some I really like. Some are head scratchers to me. And none of them really irritated me enough to really want to complain about it. So what do we got here? Well, you've got the Gods Know Future Things, which is sort of your transhumanist science fiction in space. This is the one that left me scratching my head because I don't always get it. The transhumanism thing is something I have completely missed as it's come by. And I guess I don't see the interest in the genre. But, you know, if it works for you, then fantastic. High Frontiersman, which is an alternate history Cold War in space on the moon, where you are spies trying to prevent the two superpowers from destroying each other while not being caught doing it. And then the other thing it sets up with, which I did a lot of that when I was reading it, was the two types of characters you can play are either African Americans or Cossack women. Not sure why that got folded in there, but okay, there it is. Mass Drivers is probably my favorite of this. This is the hardest of the science fiction settings you have in here, and this is very much The Expanse without the protomolecule. It is you zipping around in a ship that may or may not be all that good to start with. You generate heat from everything you do that you have to bleed off. Otherwise, your systems don't do particularly well. And you are wandering around the asteroid belt, getting from point to point. Getting stuff, selling stuff. A little bit of Firefly in there, too. Millennials, which is a Star Trek send-up. And finally, Pax Galactica, which was probably the most nebulous of the settings for me. Get it? Nebula. The most nebulous of the settings for me, simply because it was the least defined, in my opinion. It's described as sort of a grand tour of the universe with some flavoring from Dune. I didn't get that, but I am known to miss the boat on quite a few things. Do you need Fate Space Toolkit? If you're going to do a space game, yes. Very recently, I have gotten off of my ass, and I am finally running a game that I've been wanting to do since 1996. And that is, I'm running a Fating Suns game using Fate, mostly Fate core with a few other things bolted on. And I'm using this as a significant part of it. So it has been a really good addition for that reason. Like all of the toolkits, you do not explicitly need it. For instance, unless you're going to do a horror game, there's no reason to get the horror toolkit. Venture City is the closest we're going to have to a supers toolkit. And again, if you don't want to do Fate and supers, which is another one of those genres I don't think Fate's particularly good for, then you don't need that. So if you're interested in the genre or the setting and you really want to dig into it deeper and specifically the applications of the Fate system to that, then this is probably a pretty valuable book for you. If you want to keep your Fate game either historical or modern, you can probably give this one a pass. I'm glad I have it. I have no regrets that I bought it, but just be aware of that a little bit going in. So, this has sort of been Evil Hat. 2019 was a fantastic year for Evil Hat. They came out with these and a couple others that I haven't reviewed. Honestly, this was a victory lap. They knocked everything out of the park, to mix my metaphors there. So, Fate Space Toolkit. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good game.